PodCastle, episode 866 for Tuesday the 19th of November 2024. Badia's Magic Water by Maya Abu Ahliat, translated by Yasmin Seal, read by Dr. Martab Chanovic-Strench and produced by Devin Martin. Rated PG-13, with content notes for death, cultural misogyny, stillbirth, and references to murder and infanticide. Good morning, good day, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to PodCastle, the flying castle of fantasy fiction. I'm your host, Matt Dovey, and it is my privilege to present another story for our special month of Palestinian Voices, celebrating the people, culture and joy of that storied patch of land. Today I am delighted to give you Badia's Magic Water by Maya Abu Ahliat, as translated by Yasmin Seal and narrated for you by Dr. Martab Chanovic-Strench. This story was first published in The Book of Ramallah, a city in short fiction, published in 2021 and edited by the author herself, an anthology of 10 short stories by multiple authors set in and around Ramallah, de facto capital of the West Bank. Maya Abu Ahliat is a writer, actress and storyteller. She writes novels, scripts, children's stories and poetry. She has published 4 collections of poetry and 4 novels. She is the director of Palestine Writing Workshop, an institution that seeks to encourage reading in Palestinian communities through creative writing projects and storytelling with children and teachers. Yasmin Seal is a British Syrian writer and translator. Her translations from Arabic include The Annotated Arabian Nights from W. Norton 2021 and Something Evergreen Called Life, Action Books 2023, a collection of poems by Rania Mamoon. She lives between Paris and New York, where she teaches at Columbia University. Dr. Martab Chanovic-Strench is a Persian living in London with her family. This is Martab's first podcast, and now she has a real love for it. In her day-to-day life, she is a consultant, a mother, a wife, and in love with her labradoodle, which she had way before COVID. Her passions are cooking, recipe developing, reading to her son, and playing the piano. And now pay attention, for our tale is about to begin, and though you have heard the gossip, you do not yet understand.
Badia's Magic Water by Maya Abu Ahliat, narrated by Dr. Martab Chanovic-Strench. Badia walks into Ramallah Hospital like she owns the place, unhurried, greeting everyone and taking in their greetings. Stories fly to meet her in a brew of caution, curiosity and fear. From Samara, the receptionist, recently married, keen to please, she wants to know if the tranquilizers had their effect on her husband, who makes love to her like a bull. To Saeed, the errand boy, she promises a special treatment for his spine, which keeps him up at night. Now, handsome young Dr. Sami, whom the nurses like to stop and ask ridiculous questions about the weather and incurable diseases, is running towards her, reverently kissing her hand in the way of old movies. God keep you from harm, she says with a laugh, and asks about his mother, Sit Fikriya, who devoted her life to his becoming a doctor. On Badia walks, swinging the orange carrier bag, whose contents no one dares to ask about, the soft headscarf slips from her loose red bun as she totters down to the basement, fighting back a cheeky smile at the memory of the young doctor's kiss and repeating to herself, keep you from harm. She opens the door of the autopsy room with her blue beaded key and swaps her coat for a white gown. Her mobile rings. It's Salama, calling to say she has sent a girl with psoriasis from Haifa. She had spotted her with her mother at the Khalif perfume shop, told her that Badia would be able to cure her with her magic water, and directed her to where Badia works. Badia is annoyed with Salama. She tells the story to everyone and worries that her workplace at Ramallah Hospital will turn into a shrine or, God forbid, a clinic. She was wrong to have told her about the water and how it cleared her own hands of the eczema that had plagued her since Osama's death. not to mention the woman who had once snuck into the autopsy room to steal some of the magic water that had spilled off a girl's corpse to use it for some spell or ritual, who, when Badia tried to remove her, had bent down to where the water pooled on the ground and tried to lick it up. Summer, the nurse who makes the journey from Tamoon every day, takes in the day's death schedule. The first corpse is a woman from Albire, near 80. The second is a woman in her 50s who has to be prepared for transportation to Nablus. The third is a young woman of 20 who has spent 3 days in the morgue. A long day awaits, but Badia does not begin work before brewing a glass of tea with her special herbs and smoking a cigarette. Badia does not like to wash younger women, the mothers least of all. She prefers the elderly, whose corpses everyone is in a hurry to get rid of, and few will miss. Their daughters and the wives of their sons slip her a bit of money. It helps them shed their sense of helplessness in the face of the decline and inevitable death of an old mother, especially when the bed sores appear, pinking the bodies, swollen from their long, motionless sleep, and which, to the sons and the daughters, busy with their own lives, look like festering wounds. She will deal with the bodies of the 2 older women first, then work her way round to the young one. Sama regards Badia with admiration and a little awe. She fascinates her friends with her strange stories. Her mother had warned her not to get too close to her in case it spoiled her chances of marriage. Did she want to stay single forever? The magic waters of the dead can do a lot. But in Badia's presence, Sama forgets this talk and goes on telling her about the road clogged with checkpoints, a preamble to the question she wants to put to her. A month before, Badia had noticed a change in Sama. Since she had a secret she could not tell anyone, not even her, Badia, to whom everyone opens their heart. Sama, as has become her habit, asks to leave work for an hour midway through her shift, a request she has made for the past month. Ever since her return from a long holiday she claimed to have spent in her family's village home. If a person does not want to tell, Badia thinks she will not ask. Badia has finished with the first body, an easy task, everything prepared ahead of time and supervised by the wives of the dead woman's 2 sons. They stand, the wives, outside the autopsy room as Badia pours water on the plump body, reciting prayers. Nothing crueler than a mother without daughters, she thinks. A mother without daughters has no one to mourn her. One of the women had tucked $50 into her palm before she began, and this makes her work with all her heart. She places a clean towel between the legs, then pulls the right side of the body towards her and cleans it, then the left. Then comes the full ablution and the wrapping of the head, then the whole body in clean white cloth. She does not make the same effort with the second woman, who will likely be given a fresh shroud in Nablus by the woman of her family. Badia takes a break to smoke a cigarette, its taste unlike the one she smoked this morning. It is a waiting cigarette, smoked in the hope that Sama will come back. But Sama takes her time, and Badia is out of excuses to keep her from starting on the 3rd corpse. Young bodies fill her with dread. Not that she has seen many in her time at the hospital. Most of her young clients are girls, killed in stories of love and suspicion. Only 2 died of natural causes. The rest of the day, she knows, will be shadowed with gloom. The workers place the body on a large slab in the middle of the room, covered with a blue hospital sheet. 3 days in a fridge are enough to harden the softest body on earth. Badia is suddenly aware of a line of light from the window parting the darkness. The dust hanging in the room's air becomes visible. The voices of street vendors mix with the sounds of children on their lunch break at the nearby Kadora Camp Girls' School. filter down to the hospital basement. Badia lifts the sheet off the girl's face, revealing thick, wavy, red hair, which snakes down half her body. The breasts hanging limply to the side stop Badia, who understands at once that a baby's mouth has clamped itself around these teats. Traces of redness and inflammation are still visible. The skin around the uterus and navel show that she has given birth not long before. Badia touches the skin and steps back. How could a body refrigerated for 3 days still be so warm and soft? She rushes to the girl's file and reads, 29 years old, nurse, traces of poison in the blood. They killed her. The thought leaps to Badia's mind. They killed her. She clutches at her heart for a moment. She remembers it all as if it had just happened. 17, when she met Osama, who trotted past their house in Albire on a white horse, clad in black. She loved him straight away and began to wait for him to leave the nearby mosque after evening prayer. The longer she waited for him to pass, the more she loved him, until the day she met him in a clothes shop in the Ramallah souk. Only in that period did she come to understand the difference between Ramallah and Albire. The overlapping cities were divided by an imaginary line existing nowhere but in the heads of their residents, but which became clear to her when Ramallah was chosen as their meeting place, far from the eyes of her mother's large family in Albire. This was in the days of the first Intifada. They got engaged, entered university together, stole moments in rented cars on the roads between the city centre and the university in Bezait. Those rendezvous were even sweeter than those at the house of her friend, who had not yet become Salama. But Osama was killed in a flash, leaving her with a gift in her belly. Had her mother not noticed what was happening, she herself would have been killed long ago. Badia does not like to remember how she got out of that disaster. Her mother was clever enough to save her from death, but the fetus died after birth. Boy or girl, her mother wouldn't say, and she did not ask. She had felt delivered of a heavy burden when her mother told her it was dead and disappeared into the corridor of the private hospital in Jerusalem, where she had snuck her into, with the help of a women's association specialized in protecting girls of this type. A terrible void took the place of the disaster, a void from chest to womb that has stayed with her ever since. She has filled it with laughter, with solving the problems of her colleagues, washing the dead. This occupation she walked into after her mother died, and she could not find a woman in the hospital to wash and shroud her. She took on the task herself unafraid. It gave her a serenity she had not had before, a tremendous sense of calm, all of which made her leap to accept a job offer washing the dead. Since that day, she has contented herself with a simple life spent observing the sorrows and joys of others. The girl spread out on the slab before her moves between her hands so pliantly it strikes fear into Badia's heart. She pours water on her head and searches for marks of violence on her body. Trying to reconstruct the girl's story, she goes back to the file. Raised in an orphanage, born in October 1990. Badia's heart beats faster. She returns to the body and lifts the torso to wash the back. The girl's upper body relaxes into Badia's arms. Her head lies on Badia's left shoulder as if she were sleeping. The girl is calm, as if resting in her mother's embrace. Badia does not fight back the tears which begin to run down her cheek. With the girl's head still on her shoulder, she weeps. How sorry she is for the girl, no one is waiting for. But she was a mother, that much was clear. Where is her child? Its father. She rushes back to the file. Was she single? The child born out of wedlock? Was she poisoned to get rid of it? Back and forth between the body and the file. Badia approaches the head, cleans the nostrils, opens the mouth and passes her fingers between the lips as usual. When she turns the face to the right to clean the left ear, the eyelids fall open. The eyes are fixed on her. She knows this look. Very like the look she had given her mother on learning that her newborn was dead. A look of complete surrender, acceptance, release. Sama enters the autopsy room. Badia comes back to her senses and tries to hold it together, but Sama is not paying attention. She is devastated, in tears. Badia leaves the body outstretched, covers it with a sheet again, and turns to Sama, who is ready to tell her all. It is as Badia had suspected. Sama has given birth to a child out of wedlock. The man she loved had not promised to marry her, but she was convinced he would after the child was born. The baby was born in Ramallah, far from the eyes of her family. She told them she was there for a training workshop. Now she goes to breastfeed the child, which she leaves with his father on her work breaks. But the man tried to suffocate the child with a pillow to get rid of it. Sama is at a loss, caught between wanting to protect her child from its father and the fear that her family would find out. Badia takes Sama's hand and tells her everything will be all right. But first she has to prepare this girl as well as she can. Sama relaxes at once, watching Badia perform the finest ceremony she has seen. Out of her bag she takes Indian incense, a copper bowl, white cloth, Nabila soap, jasmine cologne, a tape of Abdul Basit reciting the Quran. This she slips into an old machine, and his voice begins to chant the Surah of Women as she goes on washing the girl, with precise instructions for Sama to move her this way and that. She pours water on her pubis, on her thighs, then takes the copper bowl and begins to collect the water dripping off her body. She lays the bowl on the table with great reverence. She then dries the body well and wraps it in layer after layer of bright white cloth. From a distance, she sprays cologne around the body, then comes to sit quietly beside her, holds her to her chest, and cries for a long time, to the amazement of Sama, who did not expect to see powerful Badia behaving as a mother who has lost her child. Her task completed, Badia asks Sama to tell the officials that the body is ready to go. She sits at her table, lights a cigarette. Then Badia asks Sama for the man's address, insisting she will not approach him before telling her first. The following day, Badia slowly makes her way across Library Street, stopping to pick Jasmine from the garden of the deserted house she passes on her daily walk to the hospital. At the Parliament roundabout, she meets Salama, who asks whether the girl with psoriasis had come to visit her. The answer is no. It seems the girl did not believe her when she told her that Badia could cure her with a bowl of magic water in which she washes the dead. Sorry as she is for the girl, Badia can do nothing for those who don't believe. Salama dips her head in agreement. Sama is waiting anxiously at the door of the autopsy room and comes down on her with questions. What has she done? The father of her child called the night before, begging her to marry him. Badia smiles, fishing from her bag the copper bowl. My magic water cures all sorts of ills, she says, and she remembers the look on the young man's face as she wielded the bowl of magic water and told him that this water would scar his body with a permanent rash if he did not marry Sama. At the sound of the name Badia, the corpse washer from Ramallah Hospital, about whom he had heard so much, he shook with terror and passed out. Badia asks for the day's schedule without giving Sama the chance for further questions. No dead today. The schedule is blank. Badia sighs, removes her coat, puts on her clean white gown, and drinks the special tea of herbs she brewed herself.
And welcome back. That was Badia's Magic Water by Maya Abu Aliyat, and if you enjoyed that, then I think the first port of call would naturally be the anthology from which it was taken and which Maya edited, The Book of Ramallah, a city in short fiction, published by Comma Press and readily available in paperback and ebook, as you prefer. Maya also has 4 poetry collections and 4 novels herself. The latest are the collection You Can Be the Last Leaf, 2022, as translated by Fadi Huda, and the novel No One Knows Their Blood Type, as translated by Hazem Jamjoom. Poetry is one of those arts where I had the joy beaten out of it by the education system, and I've only returned to it latterly. It turns out the joy of poetry, at least in my experience, is in sitting in the ambiguity and emotion of not fully understanding it consciously, but instead letting it resonate at a deeper level, where the truth can echo unhindered by prejudices and pre-existing notions. Which is to say, I enjoy poetry in exactly the opposite way as it was taught to me. As the arts go, though, I think it is unparalleled at expressing a perspective and a sentiment in the most direct way, even as it broaches it indirectly. Nothing else gets so much across in so short a space, I think. As Maya herself put it in an interview and translation, poetry itself is a translation of a language that is not originally understood. So, today, let us talk about Palestinian poetry a little. Our author today, Maya Abu Aliyat, is, of course, one such poet with 4 collections out. What She Said About It, 2007, That Smile, That Heart, 2012, Home Dresses and Wars, 2016, and her latest, You Can Be the Last Leaf, 2022. There's a number of her poems available online for free at poets.org, poetryfoundation.org and the LA Review of Books, and as much as I would love to read them out loud in full for you, we don't have those rights, so you must instead suffer me quoting lines that particularly resonated, and accept my encouragement to go seek them out in full yourself, or follow the links in the website post for this episode. Maya lives and works in Jerusalem, and this experience soaks through her poetry. As she describes herself in the opening lines of We. Yes, we, who raise our flags on every occasion, mention Palestine 20 times in a sentence, afraid to laugh for too long, guilty over our fleeting small joys. We, the pursued over our identities, our places of birth, and especially our burial lots. Which continues on to express, in so few and such selective words, the dissonance of trying to find happiness in a life that delivers so much sadness, the guilt of surviving, of having reasons for joy in circumstances that deliver such regular grief. The theme of being invisible to your colonisers recurs too. In Massacres, Maya writes, I've learned how friends forget me, and, if I'm lucky, my enemies as well. And then in the closing lines of Sex, this is enmity. It affords us the luxury of being forgotten, though like pleasure, it never forgets us. Above all, though, it is grief that informs these poems, I think, in 3 flavours. Personal grief, and shared grief, and grief for what could have been instead of these daily horrors. In A Road for Loss, Maya first asks, do you know a road for loss that doesn't end in a settlement? And then laments, I don't dare to speak. Whatever I speak of happens. I don't want to speak. I'd rather be lost. The title alone speaks volumes in Mothers Arrange Their Aches at Night, and expresses the shared grief, the awful bond of all Palestinians. Mothers feel sadness for mysterious reasons, like sadness over other mothers who stand in public streets holding photos of their sons' well-groomed faces. But there is one poem in particular that crushes my heart, and if you read no other of these poems in full, please seek this one out. I suffer a phobia called hope. Each time I hear that word, I recall the disappointments that were committed in its name. The children who don't return, the ailments that are never cured, the memory that's never senile, all of them hope crushed beneath its wings as I smash this mosquito on my daughter's head. There are, of course, many other Palestinian poets you might seek out, including Fadi Huda, who translated the above poems from Arabic. One other I want to highlight in particular, though, is Naomi Shihab Nye, who this autumn received the Wallace Stevens Award for Lifetime Achievement and Proven Mastery in the Art of Poetry from the Academy of American Poets. As the Academy Chancellor said in bestowing this award, Naomi Shihab Nye has borne witness to the complexities of cultural difference that connect us as human beings, evidencing a firm commitment to the poet as a bearer of light and hope. In celebrating her Palestinian heritage with a gentle but unflinching commitment, her body of work is a rare and precious living entity in our time, when the tragic conflict between Gaza and Israel threatens to deepen wounds and resentments everywhere. Rooted in the profound influence of her family's love of their culture, Nye's commitment to hope establishes her as one of the most important poet ambassadors in our time. Naomi has over 30 collections, so I've tried to pick out the poems that express hope for a better future, though inevitably the Palestinian experience means that such hope is always tinged with something else. Different Ways to Pray is a beautiful, evocative piece, full of details and perspectives. There were the men who had been shepherds so long they walked like sheep. Under the olive trees they raise their arms. Hear us, we have pain on earth. We have so much pain there is no place to store it. But the olives bobbed peacefully in fragrant buckets of vinegar and thyme. At night the men ate heartily, flat bread and white cheese. And they were happy in spite of the pain, because there was also happiness. In My Wisdom, she opens, "When people have a lot, they want more. When people have nothing, they will happily share it." Though in a later stanza, the truth of Palestinian occupation is expressed with the blessing, "Welcome to every minute. Feel lucky you're still in it." Such moments of hope are often turned to tragedy, as with the history of Palestine itself, where intifadas and accords are portrayed and twisted. My uncle's favourite coffee shop speaks of her uncle who finally left in a bravado moment after 23 years to live in the old country forever, to stay and never come back. Maybe it would be peaceful now, maybe for 1 minute. I cannot tell you how my heart has settled at last. But must end, it feels inevitably so, with, I cannot tell how he felt to learn that the week he arrived, he died. But there are times where the inverse is true, where instead of hope turning to grief, the opposite might be true, and from grief can come hope. Of all the poems I've quoted today, I would like to end on Jerusalem, which opens, "I'm not interested in who suffered the most, I'm interested in people getting over it," and closes, "There's a place in my brain where hate won't grow. I touch its riddle, wind and seeds. Something pokes us as we sleep. It's late, but everything comes next." As much as I am trying to make this month's outros about Palestinian joy, the unavoidable truth is that the citizens of Gaza are suffering in historic, unconscionable ways. For each episode of this special month, I will donate to a different charity supporting the people of Gaza, and I ask you to do the same if you're able. To all of them alongside me, to one of them, or to another that you find closer to your heart. But please, help if you can. This week I'm donating to Medical Aid for Palestine. You can find out more about their work and make your donation at map.org.uk. Thank you. That was our show for this week. On behalf of everyone at PodCastle, your co-editors Shingai Njorikagunda and Eleanor R. Wood, assistant editor Caitlin Zavanovich, audio engineers Devin Martin and Eric Valdez, and our many wonderful first readers, Andrew Cahoe, Craig Jackson, Amalia Harrington, Julia Patt, Kieran Corsaini, Ryan Cole, Sarah S. Messenger, Shrikripa Krishna Prasad, Tava Nova, Tierney Bailey, Zeev Witties, and myself, Matt Dovey. Thank you for letting us share another story with you. The legal bit. PodCastle is part of the Escape Artists Foundation, a 501c3 non-profit, and this episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 international license. That means you can share it, and please do, but you cannot sell it and you cannot change it. If you want specifics, check creativecommons.org. Our music is by Shiva in Exile. Everything we do on PodCastle is 100% donor funded, and if you'd like to support what we and the rest of EA do, please join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/EApodcasts. Prefer another method? There's details for supporting us via Twitch, Amazon Prime, Ko-fi and PayPal on escapeartist.net. We'll be back next Tuesday with another fantastic tale. In the meantime, you might care to check out our sister podcasts: Escape Pod for science fiction, Pseudopod for horror, Cast of Wonders for YA speculative fiction, and Catscast for speculative cat stories. If your heart belongs to us though, we'll see you next week. Be safe and be kind.